There are big, urgent questions about just how stable America's economy is with President Trump in the driver's seat. And no matter how hard he and his sycophants try to spin it, the data doesn't lie. And neither do the voters. And the voters are not impressed. Brand new NBC News polling released today shows Trump's economic policy is underwater. Just 39% of U.S. adults approve of his handling of inflation, while 41% approve of his approach to tariffs and trade. But we all know that rule number one of working for Donald Trump is you can never admit when you're wrong. Here's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent giving us a demonstration this morning on Meet the Press.
We believe that good policies are in place that are going to create good, high-paying jobs for the American people. We're going to get the revisions for last year next week, and there may be as big as an 800,000 job downward revision. Again, this would be the second downward revision, so I'm not sure what these people who collect the data have been doing.
Joining us now to discuss is Steve Liesman, CNBC's senior economics reporter. So, Steve, what do you make of Secretary Bessent's optimism when we're looking at a time where Americans sure don't feel the same way? 61% of them say that inflation is getting worse.
Can I just do a public service announcement first? Mr. Secretary, if you want good data, you have to pay for it. You proposed a 9% cut to the budget of the BLS and to the staff of the BLS. And it has been, by the way, both administrations, the Biden and the Trump administrations, have combined to put downward pressure for the statisticians. So, you get what you pay for, and we're not paying for it. There's things, obviously, the BLS can do to get better data, but not giving them more money or giving them less money is not the way to do it. Okay, back to your question. I'm sorry. Thank you for that opportunity.
No, an important one.
An important one. You got to pay for it. We're in a very interesting time here. On one level, there's the administration standpoint, which is that we're in this transition period between the golden age that they promise and the effects of their policies in getting there. What we've seen is a dramatic downdraft in the jobs numbers. That's the stag part of the equation. And now this week we'll get the inflation part of the equation, putting perhaps together stagflation. We get the consumer price report, the producer price report this week. And what could be happening is you have both sides doing poorly, that you have jobs are stagnant at this point, and then you could have rising prices because of what's happening with tariffs. I heard Tim O'Brien at the top of the hour say, and he's absolutely correct, we've only seen a portion of the tariffs come through into the indicators and the statistics that we watch. There's yet more to come, maybe double what we've seen so far. And what we want to watch out for, what we're watching out for, say, on Wall Street or in the economics world, not just are there price rises in tariff goods, but are the non-tariff goods also rising? So we have a generalized inflation problem. That's when we'd have a big problem. The Federal Reserve is supposed to cut in September, supposed to keep cutting interest rates. They're going to have second thoughts about that if they have a genuine inflation problem. Getting back to your poll, things are going the wrong way from what the president promised when it came to prices.
Let me play for you what the head of the director of the National Economic Council, Kevin Hassett, said on CBS, and I'll get your thoughts to it on the other side. Watch.
I would say 100% that monetary policy, Federal Reserve monetary policy, needs to be fully independent of political influence.
Including from President Trump.
Including from President Trump. The fact is that we've looked at countries that have allowed the leaders to take over the central banks. And what tends to happen is that it's a recipe for inflation and misery for consumers.
Do you think the president heard that? Because he seems
Did he really say that?
He said that, but then the president, his own president, his boss, is the one that is influencing the Federal Reserve, or I should say is trying to influence the Federal Reserve with drumming up all of this allegations of mortgage fraud by Lisa Cook, forcing her to step aside, calling Jerome Powell all kinds of names.
Can I expand on that
Please.
answer, which is it's not just the president. It is administration-wide. Let's go through it. President calling for the resignation of the Fed chair, hounding him in a way that is certainly not in the past 30 years we've seen that kind of pressure. Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, wrote a 3,000-word article in a magazine called International Economy, excerpted in the Wall Street Journal, critical of the Federal Reserve, accusing them of politics. The FHFA director, as you know, has referred these charges about Lisa Cook, the Federal Reserve governor. He went on and called the Fed chair a corrupt swamp rat.
You're talking about Bill Pulte.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Bill Pulte. Called the Fed chair a corrupt swamp rat for not letting Lisa Cook, or not banning her from the office. So I find this to be an administration-wide pressure on the Federal Reserve. So Kevin Hassett, he knows that what he said is true.
Yeah.
But those are words. The deeds seem to be the opposite in terms of the pressure that they are exerting.
Well, he could walk into the president's office tomorrow morning and say, "Stop doing this. You're politicizing the Federal Reserve."
Can he, Eamon?
I mean,
Come on, Eamon. He'd be shown the door.
Steve, how concerned are you that there will be a recession this year?
There are some good things about the president's tax policies. When it comes to business, he has done this accelerated depreciation thing. There are things that businesses like about it. There are two things that work against that. The first are the tariffs, which, as you guys are talking about, it's a tax on the economy, and it's especially a tax that hits low-income people, and it's a regressive tax. The other thing we don't talk a lot about, because it's very hard to quantify, is an uncertainty/randomness tax. You don't know. My friend Justin Wolfers, you know Justin,
yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful economist. He has, I don't know if you'll all get this joke, an intraday tariff chart. In other words, within the day.
Yeah.
But the tariffs are something that used to change glacially over years with big decade-long negotiations. You could have a 50% tariff in the morning and then it goes away in the afternoon. Yeah. There's a certain randomness, not just to the tariffs. The president's interventions in the private sector are another area of randomness. Why should the government take a 10% stake in Intel? Maybe that's okay. But maybe, I don't know, if my next investment is the government coming to come for a stake. If you try to read and understand the $550 billion memorandum of investment that Japan signed with the U.S., you will walk away with your head spinning. But what we do know, and what Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, says, is that the president will be directing the investment of the Japanese. What happened to the free market?
Well,
I kind of lost that.
That's where I would
socialism
go next.
has come to America.
But
internationally.
From the right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But the United States as the world's most stable place for your money in the world and the economic superpower, how much damage is being done to our reputation in the world as a safe haven where the strong rule of law we have here protects your money and the state isn't going to acquire your enterprise?
So I think that's very important, and I think that's something that erodes over time. What underpins America's place in the world is the depth of its financial markets, and it still remains the best place institutionally. The Treasury, Scott Bessent, he has done some stuff and said some things that follow along with the president. He's also seen as a bit of a source of stability to the market. He'll step forward, and he's been a hedge fund guy. And so the market has some trust that the worst predilections of the president may not come to pass because Scott is there to keep it from happening. So there's that. We have to watch this over time. Right now, interest rates have come down a lot because of the concern about the economy. That's back to your question on the recession. I think that's still a ways to go. We'll see if there's a bounce back in the economy. As the Treasury Secretary said in the fourth quarter, it is possible you get a bounce back. But I am very interested to see if both the tariffs and the uncertainty tax, there's things the president does that I think are okay. But if he did it according to a process, businesses tell me time and time again, okay, maybe the rules are not the rules I want, but just tell me what they are. And the great thing about the U.S. economy, kind of getting to your question, is how dynamic it is. They have more trouble adjusting in Europe than we do in the U.S. The great entrepreneurs of America, they're like, okay, tell me what the rules are, I'll figure it out. What's he doing now? Completely undermining things like the solar business and the EV business. All of these people set up businesses in anticipation of the rules being in place, the funding being in place. That's been snatched out. So what's going to happen, and the real danger here when it comes to recession, is this. You got a factory. The factory's working. Okay, great. All of a sudden, something changes, and part of that factory has to shut down. Think about that economy-wide. Recessions are caused by the idling of productive capacity. If we have an idling of productive capacity due to uncertainty and these other things, that's when you get a recession. I think and hope we can avoid it, but I think there's going to be some soft growth in the meantime.
And to your point, I think people appreciate America having a set of rules that they know when they come and invest here. But if you're constantly changing that now and being unpredictable, it makes it much more difficult for people to put any money in that project that they want to launch. So
I think that's right. I think it's very interesting to see what will happen to foreign investment over this time period.
you talk about a lot of serious things, but a reminder: no tie on this show. That's like, all right. We'd like to keep it a little bit
I'll wear
more
tie-dye next time.
We love that. All right, Steve. Good to see you. Thanks, my friend.